How do we get him? You want to dismantle an empire? Divide it.
I feel like every great villain has a great rival. So can you guys talk to me about the dynamic between both of your characters, Felix and Walt?
I think there's a lot of similarities to the characters. They're both sort of going after something, and I feel like both of them sort of lose in the end, you know. As far as the rivalry between them, I mean, you see it in the show. Walt has a vendetta for him and is coming after him for personal reasons and professional reasons. And sort of how Felix's character deals with that and manages that among all the other problems and issues that he's dealing with, his internal...
I think everyone becomes a problem for this guy, you know, and so he has no friends anymore. Everyone is a rival, you know, like everyone is against him, and that must be horrible, you know, to have to go through. But I believe at the end they realize in a way that they're both victims, you know, of a system, of an issue, of what the market is dictating, of the corruption of a country. So yeah, I think that the big realization is how much he's been used, I guess, through this season, you know?
Yeah, Felix is just this incredible anti-hero. I mean, you just cannot help but root for this guy. You play him so well. Where do you think your character ranks on a scale of Walter White from Breaking Bad to Tony Soprano?
Oh my God, no, those are big names. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I just try to make it human, you know, to make sure you could understand what he's going through and yeah, make sure we didn't stay in a black and white situation, you know. It's not like when I never call him the bad guy, you know. I can't judge him. I have to understand why is he making the choices he's making and find what I can connect with him, you know. How can I connect with him? So you focus in the family, in the friendships, or you know the fears he must have, and try to find a connection with that in order to deliver some kind of truth, you know, in the performance. So I had to stop thinking on who he was, you know, and how bad his decisions, or how much his decisions were affecting others, you know.
Yeah. In what ways do you connect to him?
I think there is this somehow he's reacting to his context, you know. He wants to change things around him, and I always wake up thinking that way, you know. It's just obviously we're doing it differently, very differently. But I think he's seriously worried about his people, about his town, about his family, about his friends, about the structure he builds. You know, he takes it very personal. I take my work very personal too. So. But it's difficult to find that. I mean, it's difficult.
I wanted to ask you a question in Spanish for our Latinx fans.
Fantástico.
Esta serie trae tu país de México a muchas personas y tú tienes el papel principal. ¿Qué piensas acerca de eso y qué significado crees que tiene para la gente de tu país?
Qué buen español, Pues sí, esta serie significa algo distinto en México, definitivamente. Y además, los hechos están acercándose mucho a nuestra realidad, ¿no? A nuestro presente. Los nombres que se escuchan, los eventos que se narran, los recordamos, son cercanos, ¿no? Y en ese sentido creo que es importante recordarnos de dónde venimos y contar esta historia fuera de México. A mí lo que me gusta es esta posibilidad de contar esta historia fuera de México, como para contextualizar un poquito por qué las cosas están hoy donde están, ¿no? Y bueno, sí, es una serie de ficción, ficción y es una serie que se toma muchas licencias, pero a la vez es una serie que trata con cierta objetividad la complejidad del problema, ¿no? No es los buenos contra los malos, sino que hay muchos niveles y es una estructura, es un sistema el que está operando, ¿no?
I love that.
Eso.
I love that you say that, Scoot, because, your character does speak Spanish in this season. So did you lean on Diego for help with that?
I leaned on anybody and everybody that would help me out. Yeah, it was difficult because the translation, the English script doesn't really translate to Spanish. And so there's a lot of sort of things that need to be worked out. So you sort of learn those Spanish lines and then you run them with somebody who speaks Spanish and they're like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but that's not how you say it or not how you would say it. So, yeah, I don't speak Spanish, but I had a lot of help down there with everybody for it.
Did you take anything from Michael Peña's performance in season 1 and bring it into, your character? Because you're the one hunting Felix this season.
Yeah, I don't think I really took anything really from his character, but I did carry his photograph in my pocket most every day, just sort of as a token to remind me and the character of what it is he's going after and why he is down there.
Wow. Diego, I have to ask you about Star Wars and your return. What is one thing you're super excited about for your return to Star Wars as Cassian Andor?
To have more time to develop the character and to pilot a little longer, It's amazing when you're piloting, the thing actually moves, It's fantastic. I just wanted to do more and more and more. But to be honest, it was something I really wanted it to happen, and I'm glad it's happening. Now we can do magic, right? And go back in time and say we're going to tell a story that happened before the film. I'm going to look younger, and I'm going to get to play with those toys again.
That's amazing. Can you give us one thing that we can expect from the series? Like a little tidbit?
Not much. No, I can't say much. It's just going to be... It's nice to start something, you know how it's going to end. It's a different approach, and the beauty is that people already have a connection with that character. So now we're gonna tell you what had to happen for Rogue One to exist.
Los viejos tiempos ya se acabaron.
Yo te ofrezco el futuro, a menos que te dé miedo, ¿verdad?
On the show, you carry a lot of weight for the women in this show. So can you talk to me about what you learned about women in the drug trade while making this show and relate that to, sort of getting equal rights and representation at every level of power?
Well, I think whatever you do, whatever job you do, the main thing is as long as we're not financially and socially independent, then we are at the whim of men. So the quest for power of women in this era, I believe it very much relates to that. It's not just to be more powerful than the men, just to be more powerful than the men, but it also provides a sense of security. You see, until you're not your own boss, then you're going to be subject to sexual harassment, to being underestimated, especially women of color. We get underestimated for who we are so much that it's like a fuel to want to get ahead. So the fight for equal rights, the fight for power, it's got so much to do with safety, and with just having a place where you feel that you can thrive without having someone threaten you or assault you. So I think Isabella has the core of that fight.
Yeah, you can tell that you're totally channeling that. Is there anything personal that happened in your life that motivated you in this character?
I think, like I said, especially for women of color, but for all women who want to rise, I feel like we can all relate. I mean, I'm a young woman that works, that is in a professional environment. So you're subject to that. You have it all around you, and I've been working for a little bit now, so yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Yes, absolutely. And, recently we saw 2 Latinx women headline the Super Bowl, which is incredible, finally, right?
Yes.
I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
On the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I love both of Shakira and J-Lo. I think Shakira I grew up more when I was younger, and then J-Lo when I was maybe a little bit older, but I enjoyed it very much. I was so happy, rocking every song, know every song.
But in the sense of having two Latinx women headline,
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. I think right now we have so many more opportunities. I see it even in the things that I'm getting, and it makes me happy. But being that said, even though we have so much more, I believe that what would be really it would really change the game would be to have more women writing, creating, that they'd be given more opportunity to write, produce, create, direct. Because that, then the seeds will be born there, and then there'll be so much more, as opposed to a lot of the things that are like written by men, from a men perspective. And that's great, but we can do so much more.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I want to go back to your character, Isabella, for a second. Is she influenced by any other TV shows or true crime characters?
I don't think so. I don't think I've seen something like her out there. But I mean, she is influenced in a real person. That I've talked about that before, and there's a lot of influence of real women that were in the drug trade.
Yeah. Who is she influenced by specifically? Is it Sandra?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the main influence is Sandra Avila Beltran.
Did you do a lot of research on her?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. I read a lot of books, and I looked through the old newspapers in Mexico. I used to go to the hemeroteca, I don't know how you say it in English, but where the old newspapers are.
Yeah.
And I would look through things, and that was a really interesting process.
Yeah. What parts of her did you bring into Isabella?
You see, I don't know, because as you do this research, I was also looking at other references, and then I was reading the script. So at the end, you just kind of end up with some kind of essence that you are trying to just like handle. Yeah.
Well, you handle it because you are so amazing. I mean, just, the fact that the women team up in this season, it's so incredible. I wanted to talk to you about Diego. I know you guys have worked together in the past on other projects. Can you share any stories about working with him, in this role, and how it was different from previous roles?
Well, I never actually had acted with him. This was my first time acting with him. But I think what he mostly helped me with was in the sense of understanding how to collaborate, like how much input you have as an artist, and then where the collaboration with other artists begin. And he was very supportive in that respect. And also he helped me a lot to inform me, because I mainly grew up in the United States. So then when I went to Mexico to do that, he helped me understand what was happening in Mexico, and he sparked my curiosity.
Yeah.
For that, yeah.
The scenes that you guys are both in are just so magnetic, I can feel it. Can you share any stories from shooting any specific scenes with him?
No, I mean, we were shooting at very, very far locations, and it was usually dark and cold, and it was 4 a.m. So I think we were just trying to keep from being cold.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of that energy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I never worked with him, but he's incredibly talented in the sense that he very quickly just gets in the part, and it's really easy to lose yourself with him and the dynamics of the characters. It's just really yeah.
I mean, I lose myself when I'm watching you guys. I forget where I am.
Yeah,
so good.
a lot of those experiences, I kind of forgot, honestly, because when you're so present in something, it kind of leaves your brain after you've done it. So that was my experience with him, because he was so talented and present with me.
Yeah. And Diego's one of many talented, actors in this show. You guys have an all-star.
An incredible ensemble, huh?
Incredible ensemble. Can you talk to me about working with all these incredible actors, especially Mexican actors?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of grew up together, all of us.
Wow.
Which was, I remember when season 1, when I went to do the makeup tests in the wardrobe, I saw, it was Tenoch and Joaquin, all these actors that I'd grown up with, either doing projects with them or just being in the same kind of generation. And it was just such a joy. And I remember Tenoch came into where I was getting my makeup done, and he just hugged me. And he said, "Can you believe we're going to tell the story together? Can you believe we're going to play this people and talk about this?" And that was a feeling that we all had, this sense of passion and responsibility and love for our country and for what we've been through. So that was very just such a gift, like something you can't recreate.
Ya van a empezar los putazos, don Juan. Los americanos van a tratar de pararnos, pero van a fracasar.
Jesse, your character, unlike a lot of the other main characters, isn't based on a real person. So is your character influenced by any other TV shows or true crime characters?
Personally, how I did it? No, I just kind of went in, made some choices, and a lot of it had to do with collaborating with the writers and producers, kind of trying to figure out what the backstory is, because he's not a real guy, you know what I mean? So we kind of came up that he was Walt's old partner, like he's been with him for a very long time. He's basically a brother to him, you know what I mean? So he brought me along to kind of have someone familiar around, knowing that he can trust somebody. And to help him guide, navigate the very tricky line of going too far to get something done and, kind of staying within the realm of doing things legally. You know what I mean? So I didn't base it on anybody or anything particular. I like the genre. I like the detective shows. I like the old 80s movies, so.
Yeah, what are some of your favorites?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. Anything Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson, is that his name? Yeah, all those kind of shows.
What was it like coming into this universe as like the new guy this season?
It was cool. When I auditioned for it a month before that I actually got the call that I got the part. I'm like, what? Like, are you like, what part? And they're like, oh, the part you auditioned for. Like, oh, I had already given up on it because it was a month later. So coming in and when I found out who part of our crew is, and I call them the chotas, right? Because it's like Mex slang for cops. Yeah. Knowing that Matt Bydell was going to be in it, and I'm a big fan of his from the stuff he did on Altered Carbon, and Scoot McNairy, who I've been a big fan of forever, and some of the new guys, and a buddy of mine that I had met in L.A. a few times, Alberto Zeni. So it was cool to be a part of that, and then being a fan of the show and having friends on the show already, and being able to hang out with them and explore in Mexico, and just, they've already been there, so it's, they kind of taken us all under their wing and showing us around.
Yeah, and what an incredible just show to be a part of.
Yeah.
I have learned so much about the drug trade just by watching
Yeah.
this show that I wanted to ask you, is there anything you learned while making it that surprised you?
That surprised me? No. I mean, it's like I've been lucky enough to work a fairly decent amount over the past 20 years. It's just different. Every show is different. So I definitely learned a lot of the history with investigating the cases and trying to, the Kiki Melendez case. I knew about it, but I didn't really know about it because it was always, it's in the periphery of the news that I would hear or see. But being a part of it and asking the producers, asking Jesse Moore, who's on set with us all the time, what really happened and some of the things that will never be on screen that, because it doesn't work with the show. But the stuff that she was able to tell us, and anytime we had a question, we'd call her or any of the other producers or writers, and who were all wonderful and collaborative, every one of us, if we had any questions. Because we all wanted to do the best and most honest show that we could with with what we had available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys did it.
It's fun.
I want to ask you about filming with La Chota.
The chotas?
Los Chotas. Some of the scenes in the show are very violent and gruesome. Can you talk to me about like shooting the interrogation scene, for example? What was it like shooting that scene?
Oh, they're fine. I mean, like everyone's super safe, and like for me, that doesn't. It's just making sure everyone feels good, you know what I mean? Like the person, if anyone's getting in a fight and anyone's getting hit, making sure everyone's okay with everything and everyone's healthy. They're a lot of fun, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't take any of that stuff home with me. The emotions of about doing those scenes. For me, it's just kind of exploring, kind of figuring out different ways to tell the story without, making it seem like it came out of a can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you have any fun stories from set that you can share?
It's all behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. I mean, we had a great time learning about each other and making sure each scene looked great, and we all looked great, and everyone got a little bit of a chance to shine when we could. But the stuff that we did behind the scenes was so much fun with the camaraderie that we built I used to bring a speaker to set every day, and we'd play music between scenes and kind of keep the mood going. We'd be singing and dancing. We'd be wilding out. It was so much fun.
That sounds
I
like
got
so
stuff.
good.
I got clips that I'm gonna be releasing as in the next couple of weeks of the stuff that we would do behind the scenes. I shot pictures. I'm a photographer as well, so I shot tons of pictures. We would hang out all the time within the city. We'd have go eat. Food in Mexico is unbelievable. Have you been? Mexico City? It's the best.
So good.
It's the best.
Did you guys do any bonding activities before filming?
We
to sort of
did.
bond?
So we went down about a week early before we started shooting, and we did a day of tactical training. It's very cool. So we learned how to hold and shoot the guns the way they did in the 80s. Because it's different than the way they do it now. In the
Really?
80s you kind of go sideways, but now you go straight on, right? The difference between the technique of shooting and holding a gun and walking around corners, it's different. It's changed. So we got to do that. We had little inner competitions to see who was the best shot, and it was me and Scoot. We're both country boys, so we both grew up shooting guns. Other than that, we would get together. All of us are kind of getting to know each other. We're all fans of each other. So we'd go have dinners and just have a good time.
¿Qué tanto sabe de la civilización romana? Lo que hicieron, pues, unieron a los bárbaros, ¿verdad?
Así que tú eres Julio César, para que sepas cómo acabó.
Eric, this show taps into a worldwide love for criminals. So what are your thoughts on the intersection between pop culture and the way we glamorize crime?
It's funny. I've spent the last 6 years of my life telling stories about criminals, about people who do bad things. And there have been times when people have asked, do you feel like you're glorifying these people or glamorizing them? And I always have the same response, which is I don't believe we glorify them or glamorize them. I think that we humanize them, which is an incredibly important distinction, because the mistake that people make when they think about criminals is that and monsters, particularly people who do really bad things, is the belief that they spring forth from the womb and they're just evil, and it's never that way. And I think that what we do effectively, and I think that a lot of, some of the sort of favorite gangster films that I wouldn't begin to compare ourselves to, the greats like The Godfather and movies and stories like that. What I do think we do effectively is we paint a picture of someone that you can relate to, and you can see that there are certain aspects of them that feel familiar to us. And I think also there's a certain power that comes with, you're a gangster, and if someone upsets you, you can fix it, and there's I think that sort of exercise of power is appealing to people who, like all of us, are subject to the, frustrations of, modern life, where things don't always go your way. And so I think, those two things intersect, and you think, well, I like that guy. I wouldn't necessarily want to be that guy, but, maybe for a minute it would be nice.
Yeah, I think that's how most people feel about Miguel Ángel. I mean, he's such an incredible anti-hero. I wanted to ask you I want you to walk us through your process in making this show. How do you determine the scope of the season? How do you fill in the blanks when you don't have all the facts?
We are lucky to begin with that we do have the facts, that so much of this, particularly in the earlier chapters and, the Escobar years and the Cali years, where there were so many things that were too strange to believe. I mean, they were just absurd, and they all happened. The challenge for us as writers is to take these things that we know happened and explain why they happened and the thought process, behind them. And what that involves is really getting to know the characters. And we're never going to meet them. I'm never, thankfully, going to meet Felix Gallardo. But I feel like we know him because we've spent so much time talking about him and learning about him. And the challenge always is, bad guys don't know they're bad. I always start from the point of view of if I'm trying to explain the things that I'm doing, I'm a drug trafficker, and I could tell you a story about, well, no, I'm not the bad guy. Like, actually, they're the bad guy, or that, the dirty cops on the, on the corner, the dirty politicians in the, in the Capitol, they're the bad guys. And America, this, cousin of ours to the north who treat us pretty badly sometimes, they love this stuff. And so why shouldn't I make $1 giving them something they're asking for? If they really had a problem with drugs, they'd work on the demand internally. So, I think that, we are all either heroes or villain or victims in our own story. And so getting inside the mind of someone who has to justify something horrible that they do is part of the fun of the job. It's also the challenge.
Yeah.
But we spend a lot of time figuring that out.
Yeah, we definitely accomplished humanizing them. I feel like this show is sort of like The Crown meets true crime. How far do you see this show going, and how many seasons do you have planned?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the drug war continues on today. So you've got 30 years of material from Narcos Mexico season 2 to the present. That doesn't mean that we'll tell 30 years of story, but we certainly could. I enjoy it immensely, and I think that we've effectively evolved from season to season, which I look back and I think God, I wish I had done Pablo Escobar for 7 seasons, and lived in, it would have certainly been easier, but I think less rewarding perhaps, because part of the fun is thinking, okay, how do we continue to tell the story without retreading, covering material we've already covered. But the drug war does evolve much like our story does, where, season 2, Mexico is about losing control of that which we built in season 1, and season 3, were there to be a season 3, would be very much about the chaos that sowed by that loss of control, and that you could take that right up to 2020 if you wanted to.